Hey, you guys. I wanted to share with you an encouragement that I've been reading from the Bible lately. I actually gave my club talk on Monday on this story, the story of Jesus walking on water, and then Peter also walking on water with him. And though I gave my club talk on it, I was talking about how Jesus is near to us in everything that we go through, even specifically in times where we're going through a trial or something difficult, especially where we have a lot of fear or we're unsure. Jesus is near to us in those moments, and we can really trust him. We can believe that he's trustworthy because in this story, Jesus was near enough to Peter that he was able to just reach out his hand and catch him when Peter started to sink in the water. But for the purpose of this devotional, I want to talk a little bit deeper, or maybe about a couple other things that have to do with this story that I've just been thinking about as I was reading this story and prepping for my club talk, and just asking myself, what do I feel like God is doing in this passage? So just as a recap, I'm not going to read the whole passage, but Jesus sent his disciples out into a boat to cross the lake. And then Jesus alone went to go pray on a mountain. And right there is something that I feel like we can all just put into practice, especially now as we have more free time and slower schedules. We need to make that time to spend with Jesus too. We need to make that time to pray, to go be alone and spend time with God, because we really want this period of a couple months, however long this social distancing lasts, we want it to be a time where we grow in our faith and we come out of this time even stronger in our relationships with Jesus than we were when it started. So Jesus went up to pray, the disciples were in the boat, and a storm started to hit. So they started to get afraid because they're in this boat in the middle of the lake and it's stormy. The wind is heavy, the rain is heavy, the waves are just increasing. And Jesus sees that happening and he decides to go out to them. And so Jesus walks on the water to go out to meet them in the boat. And the disciples get really scared because they see a figure approaching. I mean, I try to imagine that, and if I was the disciples, I would have been just as afraid, I think, because it doesn't make sense that someone would walk on water. So anyway, they're already afraid because of the storm. Then they see a figure approaching them on the water. That makes them afraid as well. It says about 3:00 in the morning, Jesus came to them walking on the water. When the disciples saw him, they screamed in terror, thinking that he was a ghost. But Jesus spoke to them at once. "It's all right," he said. "I'm here. Don't be afraid." And I think it's really beautiful that Jesus comforted them in that way. I don't think he was reprimanding them. I think he was being very comforting to the disciples in their fear. It then says, Peter called out to him, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you by walking on the water." "All right, come," Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water towards Jesus. But when he looked at the high waves, he was terrified and began to sink. "Save me, Lord," he shouted. Instantly, Jesus reached out his hand and grabbed him. "You don't have much faith," Jesus said. "Why did you doubt me?" And when they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. Then the disciples worshipped him. "You really are the Son of God," they exclaimed. So I was thinking to myself, why did Jesus do this? What was the purpose of Jesus walking on the water, meeting them out in the boat? And there was probably multiple reasons why he did it. Maybe one very basic reason was to save them from the storm. Perhaps the storm would have wrecked their boat and they wouldn't have made it. And so maybe Jesus went out to go save them from the storm. But I think there were some deeper reasons as well. And these were the three that I came up with. One was that I think that Jesus walked on the water and met them out there as another way to show them that he really was who he said he was. He really was God himself, because no one else could walk on the water. Only God himself would be able to do something so miraculous. And so throughout the disciples' lives and throughout Jesus' time with them, he's always trying to show them over and over, I am the Son of God. I am God in the flesh. And he's trying to reveal that to them through miracles and signs and wonders and all of these things. So I think that one of the reasons why he might have met them on the lake that night by walking on water was to show them that he really was who he said he was. He really was God. Another reason that I think he could have done this was to show them that he cared, that he could save them. And I kind of mentioned that before, but I think Jesus was always showing people that he cared and that he loved them. And in the same way that he cares and loves us so much, that in their fear, in their terror, he met them and said, "It's all right, I'm here, don't be afraid." I think he wanted to comfort them and show them, no, I really do care about you and it's going to be okay, I'll take care of you. And then the third reason that I think Jesus might have done this is specifically in relation to Peter, but then can also be applied to our lives as well, is I think he really wanted to give Peter the opportunity to trust him. Because Jesus said to Peter, "Okay, come." When Peter said, "Okay," Peter was kind of testing him, like, if it's really you, Jesus, tell me to come walk out on the water. Because some part of Peter knew that if it was Jesus, then Jesus could make a miraculous thing happen, right? Like, if he said come, then Jesus would be able to keep Peter afloat while walking on water. So Jesus was almost like Peter was almost testing the waters in a way. And then Jesus said, "Okay, come." And so I think Jesus was giving Peter the opportunity to trust him and to show Peter, like, I am trustworthy and you can walk on water because I have the power to let you. And I have the power to save you even when you start to doubt. Because Peter started to doubt when he looked around and saw the craziness of the storm and the wind and the waves, and he started to get nervous when he took his eyes off of Jesus. Because he was looking at Jesus, he was walking on the water. He looked around, got afraid, and slowly began to sink. And immediately Jesus reached his hand out and pulled Peter up and saved him. And so I really think that Jesus wanted to give Peter the opportunity to trust him and to show Peter, I really am trustworthy. You can trust me with your life. So I think that's really applicable to us today, that Jesus does want us to know that we can trust him in all and any situations that we find ourselves in. So something I would encourage you guys to do today, tomorrow, sometime in the next week or so, is spend some time with Jesus and think about if there's a situation in your life where you feel like you really need to trust that Jesus has got it under control, or that you really need to trust that Jesus cares about the specific situation that you're going through, and see if you can talk to him about it and ask him to help you trust him. And maybe you can just lay it down to him and say, Jesus, I don't know what's going to happen in this situation. I mean, coronavirus, for example, but there's other things going on in your lives, I'm sure, where you say, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm so unsure and nervous and maybe fearful. But God, I want to trust you. I want to trust that you'll take care of this situation and that you are trustworthy. And in the same way that he took care of Peter and he showed Peter that he was trustworthy, Jesus can show you that he's trustworthy in your life as well. So I hope that you guys do take the time to talk to Jesus about this. Make the most of this time where you can spend time with God more easily than you can normally when you're trying to rush off to school and sports and all the things that you normally do. So take advantage of this time, spend some time with Jesus, read passages like these, talk to your leaders about it if you need ideas of what to do, and you really won't be disappointed. You will never regret time that you spend with God because it's always going to benefit you. And it's the exact relationship that you were created to have. You were meant to have this relationship with Jesus, so you don't want to miss out on it. Love you guys.